Now that you've tailored your control set to match the requirements of your system, it's time to implement those controls on the information system. In control allocation, we walk through where to input the controls, where it's required, and where you can selectively apply the controls. So let's jump into this one. This is task S3, Control Allocation. Allocate security and privacy controls to the system and to the environment operation is the task in S3. Potential inputs include the security categorization, the organization and system level risk assessment results, the organizational policy on system registration, the enterprise architecture, the security and privacy architecture, the security and privacy requirements, the list of security and privacy requirements allocated to the system elements, and the environment of operation, a list of common control providers and common controls available for inheritance, system description, system element information, system component inventory, and relevant laws, executive orders, directives, regulations, and policies. In this task, we're going to take each of the required controls and we're going to allocate them to a specific part of the system or maybe to the system as a whole. Expected outputs from this task are a list of security and privacy controls allocated to the system elements, and the environment of operation. Primary responsibility for this task is the security architect, the privacy architect, the system security officer, and the system privacy officer. These individuals are supported by the Chief Information Officer, the authorizing official, the authorizing official's designated representative, the mission or business owner, the Senior Agency Information Security Officer, the Senior Agency Official for Privacy, and the system owner. It does align to the SDLC. For a new system, it aligns to initiation, concept, requirements, definition, and for an existing system, it aligns to operations and maintenance. It does align to the cybersecurity framework, profile, as well as PRIP, which is information protection, processes, and procedures, security policies that address purpose, scope, roles, responsibilities, management commitment, and coordination among organizational entities. Process and procedures are maintained and used to manage protection of information systems and assets. The organization designates controls as system-specific, hybrid, or common, and allocates the controls to the system elements, that is, machine, physical, or human elements, responsible for providing a security or privacy capability. Controls that are allocated to a system or an organizational consistent with the organization's enterprise architecture and security or privacy architecture and the allocated security and privacy requirements. So we're going to determine which controls are system-specific, which ones are hybrid, and which ones are common controls. And hopefully the common controls will help drive down the number of controls that the system owner is going to be required to implement when we hit the next step. Not all controls need to be allocated to every system element. Controls providing a specific security or privacy capability are only allocated to the system elements that require that capability. A security categorization, a privacy risk assessment, security and privacy architectures, and the allocation of controls work together to help achieve a suitable balance between security and privacy protections and the mission, business-based function of the system. So when we do this balance, we can apply controls where they're most effective. And a good example of this is if we have privacy control requirements on only a part of a system that is protected from the rest of the system, then we're only required to apply those privacy protections to that small part of the system as long as it's protected from leaking any of that data to the rest of the system. This allows us to be more flexible in our implementation. It drives down the cost of implementing controls, and it makes the business more accepting to the security requirements that we're enforcing. Security and privacy requirements allocated to the system elements, and the environment operation from back in task P17 guide and inform the control allocation to system elements. Again, will only implement those controls where they're required. So it takes some planning to determine exactly where controls are going to be required. Sometimes that's across the entire system, and sometimes it's just in a portion or a subcomponent of the system. Common controls that are made available by the organization during the RMF Prepare Organization Level step back in task P5 are selected for inheritance, and hybrid controls are also selected. So remember, if the common control doesn't provide the protection level that's needed by the system owner, they can enhance that control by making it a hybrid control where we get part of the control from the organization, from the common control, and part of the control at the system level. Common controls satisfy the security and privacy requirements allocated to the organization and provide a protection capability that is inherited by one or more systems. So again, common controls are made available at tiers 1 and 2, and they're available to systems across the organization. Hybrid controls satisfy security and privacy requirements allocated to a system and the organization and provide protection capability that is partially inherited by one or more systems. So we use part of the common control and then part of the system level control to meet the requirements when we build a hybrid control. So just remember, it's a hybrid combination between common controls and system level controls. Finally, system-specific controls satisfy security and privacy requirements allocated to the system and provide a protection capability for that system. Controls can be allocated to a specific system element rather than to every element within the system. For example, system-specific controls associated with the management of audit logs may be allocated to a log management server and need not be implemented on every system element. So in this way, we're actually providing kind of a common control within the system. That log management server can serve to do all of the controls in log management for the entirety of the system if it can meet all the requirements. References for this task include Special Publications 839, 64, and 160 Volume 1, as well as the NIST Cybersecurity Framework and OMB FEA. In closing this module, we talked about Task S3, its inputs, its outputs, roles, responsibilities, the SDLC and CSF lifecycle alignment, control designation, balance, security and privacy requirements, common controls, hybrid controls, system-specific controls, and the references. If any of this doesn't look familiar to you, I'd say go back and watch the video again. If it all makes sense, go on to the lesson if you're taking the RMF course through Cyber-Recon. If you're not, drive on with the next video, and we will see you there.